I hope you like movies because in this week's installment of Twig, we will be talking about movies a lot. From the Sonic movies surpassing over $1 billion in revenue to Sony Pictures trying to turn every single game they can think of into a movie, a show, or some form of anime, while at the same time forgetting that games like Sly Cooper even exist. But of course, it isn't just about movies, because we also have to talk about game cancellations, new GPU announcements, and more, so let's go ahead and bundle it all together in this week's episode of Twig. Starting us off with the headliner for this week, Sony Pictures is set to adapt Horizon Zero Dawn, Helldivers 2, and Ghost of Tsushima into different forms of media. Helldivers 2 and Horizon Zero Dawn are both set to become movies in the near future, with both being in the very early stages. But surprisingly, these aren't the only two movies we know about that Sony has worked on, as a while back it was also revealed that Gravity Rush was going to be getting a movie, and that was being worked on as well, despite looking a little odd in the early images we actually saw. Ghost of Tsushima, on the other hand, is not going to get a movie, but instead is going to be becoming an anime over on Crunchyroll in the near future, specifically focusing on the game's online mode called Legends. According to the official statement following the anime's announcement, Sony and Crunchyroll believe that anime is not a genre but a medium, and it's one of the fastest growing areas in entertainment, with them expecting that by 2030, the largest addressable market outside of Japan and China that will reach 1.5 billion will be anime, because anime resonates deeply with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, who crave access to community and connection. Not only this, however, but we are getting a physical location-based form of media with this whole entire Sony collaboration being physical medias with The Last of Us, Uncharted, and Jack and Dexter, all of which are planning to have some type of exhibit that you'll be able to go to, which according to Druckmann will allow you to step into the worlds of The Last of Us, for example, as you navigate the infected tunnels of Seattle, and this proof of concept phase that they're going through right now uses groundbreaking technology in order to immerse your senses fully like you've never experienced these franchises before. And honestly, I think it's very interesting. Who knows how long it's going to be if this works out well, until we end up getting like a Sony Park type version of what we have with Universal and Disney already. And while we're on the topic of movies and physical media, let's talk about Sonic the Hedgehog and the insane movie success it has had recently. Spotted by law number 3961 on Reddit, Sonic the Hedgehog as an entire franchise in media alone is now worth over $1 billion, with Sonic 1 bringing in $319 million worldwide, Sonic 2 bringing in $405 million worldwide, and Sonic 3 bringing in $279 million worldwide, for a combined total of over $1.003 billion. And with reports of a fourth movie already being locked in, with future Sonic movies having the likes of Jim Carrey open to the idea of returning in over and over, I wouldn't be surprised if Sonic becomes something more than just a video game mascot, but also gets known as like an animated movie mascot as well in some form of the way, considering the fact that they're already known as a video game mascot, the mascot kind of for like Sega in general, and much more. Now I know this is a lot of movie talk, and despite the movies, shows, anime, and even physical experiences being related to gaming, it's not just what the show is about. So let's talk about some more gaming focused news, starting off with something that blends this whole entire topic of millions and billions of dollars together. According to court filings that was recently published in December as part of an ongoing lawsuit against Activision Blizzard, it was revealed that Call of Duty Black Ops 3 costs $450 million to make, selling a total of 43 million copies, with other games increasing in development costs but kind of decreasing in sales. Modern Warfare 2019, for example, cost $640 million to create over the entirety of the game's lifespan and sold 41 million copies, and then there's Black Ops Cold War, which cost $700 million to create over its entire life cycle, selling only 30 million copies. And it feels like with Call of Duty, the budget gets higher and higher, but the sales get lower and lower, causing more strain on the company to try things like the use of AI to cut costs here and there and bring in more profits with the lower sales numbers. As in Black Ops 6, we have already seen a huge influx of AI generated assets, from art to potentially even voice lines and more. Now, despite sales decreasing, it appears that having an in-game store with tons of bundles helps keep them in the positive. As in 2021, they reported making $8.8 billion in revenue, which was up from $8.09 billion in revenue in 2020. According to the documents, $5.1 billion of that money came specifically from DLC and microtransactions, meaning despite purchasing a $60 to $70 game, the company profits the most from selling you an endless stream of $20 to $30 bundles. And in the same vein, we also have some rumors that have started to swirl around online that the next Call of Duty game being made in 2026 by Infinity Ward will launch alongside the next Xbox console, which is currently codenamed Xbox Prime. According to these rumors, a handheld is set to release shortly after the console launches, launching in either 2026 or 2027, and it's going to be very interesting to see what the handheld entails, as with Microsoft having a huge push on streaming, making everything a Xbox device or an Xbox console, will they be selling a cloud gaming device, a Windows handheld that just happens to have the Xbox app pre-installed, or is it going to be some type of special Xbox specific handheld that can only play games on the Xbox store, similar to what people kind of imagined back in the Xbox 360 days when people thought of an Xbox laptop that would just be running the Xbox operating system and could only play Xbox games, but would be in laptop form. Only time will really tell, but I wouldn't be surprised if the entire purpose of a handheld is to compete with the Steam Deck, ROG Ally, and even the Retroid, three handheld devices that are already pretty popular in the consumer marketplace. Speaking of consumer marketplace products, however, I didn't want to make an entire segment on it, but there are more and more and more leaks regarding the Nintendo Switch 2, which seem to relate to it just being a bigger and better Switch, which while I would love to talk about it every single week, I'm just kind of getting bored of talking about it. I'm going to be completely honest here. The main major development for it that I've seen recently is that the Joy-Cons could potentially be used like a computer mouse due to a sensor that is on the Joy-Con leaks, but man, I wish they would just go ahead and announce it at this point, so I didn't have to see every single week a new mention on how the kickstand of the Switch 2 got leaked and how it's an insane thing, or look, here's a new SD card that is Switch 2 branded. Just give me the physical playable device already, please, Nintendo. I am begging you. But sadly, not everything is going to end up being playable, as the Transformers game by Splash Damage known as Transformers Reactivate has been cancelled. This was going to be a 1 to 4 player online action game where we would have played as one of the few remaining Autobots that was salvaged from an unknown threat to humanity that managed to claim Earth as its own. The official statement from the Splash Damage company goes as follows. Today we have some very difficult news to share. The decision to make an end of development on Transformers Reactivate. This means we will be scaling down to refocus our efforts on other projects. Unfortunately, despite every effort, and a number of roles across the studio are now potentially at risk of redundancy. This decision did not come lightly, and it is a difficult time for the studio and our people. We want to take a moment to thank the team who worked on Transformers for their dedication and passion. Hasbro was an incredible and supportive partner throughout, and we hope to work with them again. And to our many fans, your excitement and support helped keep us going. While not being able to see the game through to its release is painful, having to say goodbye to friends and colleagues hurts even more. We're now focused on doing everything we can to support them through this tough period, just as we are committed to caring for those who will stay with us as we build a stronger Splash Damage for the future. Thank you for your compassion and understanding, signed Splash Damage. And while we may not be able to actually ever play this Transformers game, it does make me wish that games would just not get announced so early if they were going to end up not getting developed long term. But at the same time, I kind of understand how dull some years would be if games in progress just never got teased at all, so it's a bit of a double-edged sword where all we can really do is think about what could have been. Now for our final topic of the week, let's talk about Nvidia, who recently announced the brand new RTX 50 series line of GPUs. Starting at $550, we have the 5070, which Nvidia has claimed delivered the type of performance you would typically see on a RTX 4090 card, which we'll talk about more a little bit later in this episode, for basically $1,000 cheaper than what the 4090 actually costs. All the way up to the point where the 5090 will be available for around $2,000. So there's a lot of different pricing going on here, all the way from the low end of $550 to the high end of $2,000 for a single consumer GPU. But on top of this, they also announced DLSS 4, which builds on the previous versions of DLSS and taps into AI more to generate around 4 extra frames with every frame that gets rendered on a GPU, allowing for games to run faster, and with the setting enabled, allowing you to get like 4 times the actual FPS performance on any game you have due to these AI generated frames. And I'm going to be honest here, hopefully with them going ahead and making all these extra changes to DLSS and making it DLSS 4, hopefully we could see a little bit less of the ghosting issue that exists on DLSS before, where sometimes when a character would move or something would move, the background would be dimmer and darker based on the silhouette of that character due to those fake frames being generated, causing a little bit of an oddity to your actual graphical sense whenever you're playing a game. And it is also highly believed that these AI generated frames are what are allowing the 5070 to have the same performance as a 4090, with people acknowledging that the raw power of a 4090 is still most likely going to outperform the 5070 series when it actually ends up coming out. And then other than this, the new GPU and DLSS systems, most of the presentation was spent talking about AI and how certain goals for AI is still over 10 years out, causing stock prices to drop a bit for Nvidia and other companies like the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. But hey, the future's still bright if you're thinking about upgrading, so maybe a 50 series GPU could be on the play for you. But my rule of thumb is always to only really simply upgrade when your favorite games stop running well on your current setup. But with all that said, hope you all have a wonderful week, and I'll catch you guys next time for another installment of Twig.